Hey guys, Russell here from homebrewrepublic.co.nz. How you going? Welcome to today's brew review. We're here to check out Black Rock's Extra Pale Ale. What we're going to do is cover the kit, share the recipe we used to brew this, and of course, cover the finished product. Let's get into the brew review. Hey guys, welcome back to the official brew review for the Black Rock Extra Pale Ale. We're going to get straight into the finished product. Here we go guys, bottle, glass, pour. Alright. There we are team, check that out. Right, what we can see here, the brew pours beautiful pale gold. That has cleaned up really nicely. I always use finings, especially in brews like this, where it's not just about colour, it's also about the clarity. What we can see is beautiful soft white head there. Good head retention. It is very aromatic, the way we've brewed it. Very much those citrus and juicy notes coming off the top. And in our hop forward flavour profile, like I said, very much clean, citrusy, juicy, fruity notes, with a very subtle malt character on the back, and in terms of our body, very light, very crisp and very clean, which is exactly what a good XPA or Extra Pale Ale is meant to be. I have a confession to make guys. Now this brew here I actually brewed in December last year. It is now September. I've been really bad on content this year, so I'm only just getting around to finishing this video off. But first of all, the fact that 10 months in the bottle, and this is one of my last 3 bottles, I've been saving these bottles just to finish off this video. So even after 10 months in the bottle, this is still an outstanding brew, which just shows how much longevity we can get out of brews. And I've done a video before around my view on how long homebrew lasts in the bottle, and I'm pretty sure my general take, although I've changed a little bit of my view, my general take is that the quality of beer will keep improving up to 3 months in the bottle, and after about 10 to 12 months will start going stale from there. So this is probably in that view, this is probably coming to the end of what I would consider its shelf life before the quality starts to degrade in the bottle, but it is still an outstanding brew. Now the only area where I've changed is I used to make a real point of not touching my brews for 2 to 3 months. Where I have changed, and indeed with this brew I applied that philosophy, is I have, especially where I'm dry hopping, I have started drinking the brews a lot earlier and taking advantage of that more vibrant hop forward character and the more vibrant hop flavours that come through, particularly early on, which I really enjoy. Now for me, when I brewed this, I was going into summer, so basically it was the start of summer last year when I brewed this, and what I really wanted was, I was thinking about long afternoons on the deck, hot sun. What I really wanted was something light, crisp, clean, refreshing and sessionable and easygoing, and that is exactly how this came out. So I'm super happy about that, and that indeed is in line with a classic XPA. They are typically very light and crisp bodies, very subtle, easy riding malt character and very easy drinking brews. So this has come out exactly how I wanted it. One of my friends, Dion, he is one of the people I regularly share brews with. I'm pretty sure I shared this with him, I think. If I did, he would have told me what he thought. It was almost a year ago, so unfortunately I don't remember, but Dion subsequently brewed this himself, and he grabbed the recipe from our site, but what he also did is he's gone back and left a review on the site. So first of all, Dion, thank you for all your support. It is always epically appreciated. But Dion's review, when he left it, and these are his own words, is, "This has got to be one of the best brews I've ever made." And when he says I've ever made, he's talking about the brew that he made. The Southern Cross XPA, which is the name of the recipe we gave it, I'll come to that later, is very sessionable and best enjoyed around the barbecue with good friends and good food. I couldn't have said that better myself. That is exactly what I wanted to create when I brewed this. So I'm absolutely stoked that that's how it's coming across to other people as well. But what I'm also more, I guess, stoked about is, and I guess that review, it almost epitomizes everything that I want our site and our content to do. I've got this belief that it is super easy to create good brews that we can enjoy and that we're happy and proud to share with our friends and family from extract brewing kits. And so if what we do here and what we share helps you guys do that, that's the best we can ask for, or at least the best I can ask for. So Dion, again, thanks, man. But your question right now is probably, how did I brew that? What did we do? So Black Rock launched this kit probably mid to late 2024, coming up a year ago. And it is one of the few, if not the only, extra pale ale around. There's not many. But what I would say is it has become one of the best-selling kits on our site for us, and I would be unsurprised if in the future it is consistently up there as one of the best. So watch this space. But basically what we did is we grabbed that kit there. This is brewed from memory. So if you check out Black Rock's site, they're really good about publishing how they make their products. So first of all, Black Rock, New Zealand brand, thumbs up. Entirely produced in New Zealand. And I would need to check this, but knowing Black Rock, I would suggest that the grains and malts they're using are New Zealand malts as well. But I do know this is made at least in part with Pilsner malts. So like we said, really light malt flavour profile, really light character, gonna make it really easy drinking. Now what I did is I brewed this with ultra light Black Rock malt extract. So I'm a fan of malt extracts, particularly over dextrose. Nothing wrong with dextrose. Where I like the malt extracts a little bit better is they're going to give a smoother mouthfeel. I think it's just a cleaner flavour profile and a far better outcome on your brew. But in this case, I think has worked exceptionally well. What I did was I used the M66 hophead ale yeast. Now the reason I chose that is it's well suited to ales, but in particular it is suited to fruit forward brews, and we'll talk about the hops in a second, but this did become quite a fruit / citrus forward flavour profile with the hops that we used. So that was the main reason I chose that. Now the other thing with that yeast is it has an ideal fermentation temperature range of 18 to 22. So if you're going into spring brewing now and you're brewing in ambient temperature, that's a really, really nice yeast to use, because that ideal fermentation temperature range is well suited to this time of year. I did use yeast nutrient. Yeast nutrient's a funny one. I find people either really like them or are indifferent to them. And do you need yeast nutrient? And I think the answer to that is officially no. You know, you should, if you had everything else right, if you had the right amount of yeast, if you had the complete right environment, you'll be fine without it. I think the problem is with home brewing is that getting everything right all the time isn't always the case, and so yeast nutrient is just something that can be used to improve fermentation and give our yeast the best chance of doing what they need to do. What I would say though is that I do notice the difference when I use yeast nutrient in the activeness of fermentation, in terms of how quickly it gets going and then how active it is when I use the nutrient versus when I don't. So I can see the difference. And if I go back to my last brew review, one of the other things I did was I talked about pitch rates. When I brewed this, I used a single bag of the M66. If I was doing this again today, I would use 2 bags. So I think the single bag by itself is probably, I should have checked, it'll be 11, maybe 12 grams. So I would take that up to the 22, 23 grams using the two bags. Now the hops are the piece de la resistance of this brew. What I did is I dry hopped with 150 grams. Now I used 3 hops. First, Motueka, Nelson Sauvin and Riwaka, 3 amazing New Zealand hops. So what you could say is these are indeed a powerhouse of New Zealand hops. Motueka, zesty, citrusy and underlying tropical fruit. This would be as a standalone hop. It is one of my favourites overall in terms of all hops, but certainly in terms of New Zealand. It is a fantastic hop. Nelson Sauvin, very, very interesting hop. So Nelson Sauvin was named after, the Sauvin comes from the word Sauvignon, as in Sauvignon Blanc. It is, the primary kind of character that comes through from this hop is like a gooseberry / fruit character, but it's got a very sharp tone to it, much like a Sauvignon Blanc. So it is, renowned for white wine character, basically. Lastly, Riwaka, intense tropical fruit and citrus. But collectively, these 3 hops go exceptionally well together. When I brewed them, so I used 50 grams of each in equal portions, taking us up to a total of 150. If you wanted to do the same, you could grab those hops by themselves. If you happen to look on our website, we've also created some hop blends, which are in the hop section. That blend was called Tropical Burst. So basically we pre-package that blend for you and make it available that way. I used 150 grams. It's going to depend on, and the other thing to think about here if you're doing it is your dry hopping rate, and if it's going to depend on how much of a hop character you like. 150 grams isn't massive. I would have said 200 to 300 is getting big, like real big. So I guess 150 is around a mid road, but it will depend on your personal preferences. At the least, I would use a total of 50 grams. But you can go anywhere in the middle of that. You could go 100 grams. You'll get a good outcome. So that kind of brings us to the recipe. Now, like I said, I've created a recipe. I've published this on homebrewrepublic.co.nz. So if you want to recap the exact items I used, you can go and find it on our website. Obviously, you can grab this kit here from any great stockist of Black Rock, or of course from our website as a recipe. We called the recipe Southern Cross XPA. Now the reason we called it the Southern Cross XPA is this is an all New Zealand brew. So like I said, Black Rock, good old fashioned New Zealand brand, good old fashioned New Zealand ingredients going into it. The hops that I mentioned, I've already said, powerhouse of New Zealand hops. This is all New Zealand. The Southern Cross, if you're not familiar with New Zealand, and thank you to everyone overseas who checks out this content, the Southern Cross is an iconic constellation in our night sky. So very much a nod to the true uniqueness of this brew. And the recipe, when you look at it, like we've said throughout this video, is it's a smooth, easy drinking XPA with a punchy and clean finish, perfect for summer sipping. So although I brewed this last summer, and I'm now late doing this content, in some respects it's quite timely because at least in New Zealand and in Australia and anywhere in the Southern Hemisphere, we are now in spring, which means we are very much heading back into warmer afternoons, warmer days, warmer evenings, a lot more light, and the time of year when we are likely to be hanging out on the back deck with friends, sipping a few brews. So the next probably question, I mean that kind of wraps it up for this brew, to be honest. Next kind of question is, what are we up to? The next brew that I've got, which we'll do a review on, is a Pacific Pale Ale. I plan to have that out next month, and I'm kind of thinking about the brew that I'm going to do next. One of the ones that I've had on my mind is another crack at a brew we did, which we called a supercharger. Did we call it supercharger? Ooh, I'd have to go back and check what we called it. I basically brewed a lookalike brew of the Panhead Supercharger APA, and it came off well, but I've always felt I could have done it a little bit better, and I've wanted to go back and just change how I did it slightly, and I can't get the niche out of me. So I think that is probably going to be the next brew that I put down. Otherwise, if I was not going to do that, I would be pulled back to a pure play classic lager. I think it's been a while since I've done one of those. All that said, what I want to do is say thanks guys if you've watched this far. I fully appreciate your support. Feel free to give us a thumbs up. It helps us, we really appreciate it. And I've mentioned a bunch of stuff today. Feel free to jump on our site and check us out. It's www.homebrewrepublic.co.nz. Of course, you can find us on Facebook, or you can find our group on Facebook, which is Homebrew Republic Kit Brewing Community. But like I said, if you've watched this far, thank you, appreciate your support, and I'm going to say cheers, catch you next time.
Cheers.